From the Middle is proud to be a founding member of Odd Pods Media. Hey, everybody, we're back. Sorry we missed a week. We explain why in the episode. So if you want to find out, well, continue listening. It's episode 246. We spend most of the first half of this episode hearing from you, the Middlers, those that listen that we affectionately refer to as Middlers, like I just said. We ask, what's an anti-bucket list story or item? In other words, something that you've done that you never need do again. We have some fun with that. And then most of the back half of the episode is what's going on in the world of entertainment. Talk a little bit about the Oscars and things going on with some of the pretty actors and actresses in the world, and then some of the things that we're streaming. It's a lot of fun, and we hope you enjoy. We sure enjoyed recording it.
Oh, for the love. Sorry, just clearing my Mountain Dew hole.
I got my phone hole cleaned today.
That's where you keep it? You're so cerebral and you're so developed and evolved.
From the Middle after dark over here.
Hey, everybody, we're back. For the one of you who noticed that we missed a week. Sorry about that. We had some life happen, and we won't get into it, but some health scares in the family, and everybody's good now, but it was a little touch and go there for a sec. So thank you for the latitude. We appreciate it, and we appreciate the one person who noticed. So in lighter news, Dillon, you had a fun prompt that you asked a few weeks ago to our Middlers on the From the Middle for the Middlers Facebook group. If you're not a part of that, we encourage you to.
Yeah.
There's some fun discussions that take place there. Why don't you tee that up?
Yeah, speaking of health issues, let's talk about bucket lists. So I saw a little bit of chat online, and it was the idea of anti-bucket list, right? So this could be if you're unfamiliar, there was a movie called The Bucket List, and it's things you want to do before you kick the bucket. So what about the anti-bucket list? What about things, no matter how great or small, that you've done? Probably sometimes it's little sarcastic stuff, like go to the buffet down the street. And sometimes it might be big things, like this trip turned out to be one of the worst trips I've ever been on, kind of thing. So we proposed the idea of an anti-bucket list. Corey, you've got some responses pulled up. I've got some responses pulled up. And no matter how big or small they are, I think we should just say some. And if we want to comment or extrapolate out on a few, I think we do that. We'll double click into that, as Corey likes to say, little trigger finger, click, click. And we can double click into some that we want. So we are going to do the anti-bucket list. I did a very formal French bow. I don't know why, but that felt like the way to introduce this portion.
It's because you're feeling fancy.
I am feeling a little bit fancy. So, Corey, why don't you read off a couple and we'll double click.
And stop me when you want to double click. Middler Tom says, jump naked over a bonfire. To which I replied, this really happened? To which Tom replied, oh yes, much to my eternal embarrassment. I was an anthropology major at the time, and I always wondered what the mindset was of ancient peoples who did rituals and dances around bonfires in prehistoric times. I thought I'd give it a whirl, and my best friend Dan joined me. It was exhilarating. To us, the streaking fad of the 1970s never went away. It just dragged on into the early 1980s. But both Dan and I were pretty chagrined when we looked in the mirror and saw that quite a few of our hairs and eyebrows had been singed. So we looked a little weird for about a week. It didn't stop us from doing it again, though. So jumping over a bonfire.
I missed almost all of that with an unstable internet connection, but I had read it. So I'm glad that you shared that one. That's great.
Boy, that is almost an anti bucket list thing because he did it again.
Yeah, that's true.
But he won't do it again.
Not again. Yeah, we all go through phases.
I'll never do that twice again.
All right, Midler Ryan says eating a crab cake from a different place each day on your honeymoon. 1 out of 5 stars. So I asked, just because the novelty wore off or because you got sick? And Ryan said, the taste never weaned. I enjoyed it just as the day before. That being said, it was like going to a batting cage. All the balls are coming from the same source, the size and speed the same, but somehow, some way, 1 out of 5 just seems off. And that's the one that hits you directly in the jejunum, and it takes a bit to recover. And now you hate baseball and crab cakes. I don't know what jejunum is, or if he meant something else, but that's.
I mean, I've got a guess, but
I can't imagine a world where I would be sick of crab cakes. But I appreciate the sincerity with which you shared. And I was thinking the point was going to be like, if they were there for a couple weeks, he couldn't pinpoint which crab cake made him sick to know where to not go back and eat.
yeah.
One of them made him sick, and he's trying to like, well, one night I just had a salad. That probably didn't make me sick.
It was probably the salad.
It was probably the salad. It's always the salad.
Hey, more people are getting things like E. coli and whatnot. They are getting food poisoning from eating salads than they are from eating other things. I don't know.
True.
I think that's right. I could be wrong. I'm not citing anything.
And look, all of what you just said is very much in the spirit of the show. So blaming vegetables, not citing things.
Yeah. So maybe it's the salad that shucked him in the oysters.
All right. Bungee jumping, never, ever again. I really thought I was about to die. Well, Midler Rachel didn't listen to Axe Rawlinson, who told us that it's actually a very low risk proposition that feels high risk. So bungee jumping, no need to ever do that again.
You know, the great thing about me, not that there's many, but this is one. I don't ever feel obliged to like, hey, Dillon, I bet you can't insert risky thing. And I'm like, you're right. I sure can't. See you later. So like that, none of that would ever work on me. The whole like trying to get me into a squirrel suit or to bungee jump or like none of those things would like you couldn't trick me into risking my life like on my ego, right? That's just not a thing. It's not a factor. So I can just be like, you're right. I'll see you down at the crab cake shack. But God bless anyone who tries that stuff, whether they get talked into it or are just excited to do it. My survival instincts kick in far before any of those activities.
I'm willing to bet that I'm not the only one who missed a lot of what you were saying. And there might still be some who are still in this space. It took me a while to realize by squirrel suit, you mean like the glider suit or whatever. And I was trying for the life of me to figure out in my mind, like what would make a squirrel suit dangerous. And the only thing I could come up with was like a whole bunch of rabid squirrels think that you're now their friend, and now they're all coming after you, and then it creates this whole big debacle. I assume that that's not what you were talking about, but Dillon in a fluffy squirrel suit is what was going on in my mind, trying to make it dangerous.
I'm deathly afraid of giant eagles. So
I was like, what's the worst case scenario there? People just bring you a whole lot of nuts?
Yeah.
Well, I'm in charge of photoshopping the thumbnail, and we know where this is headed. So that's going to be great. Okay, 2 people said eat an oyster.
Oh my! I didn't even know that when I made my oyster joke.
And one of them was Amy Ayala.
Indeed. I mean, her and I share our hatred for 2 things: oysters and caviar. And yeah, I mean, I've tried oysters multiple different ways because I've tried them like the classic way, and oysters Rockefeller, and I've tried them deep fried, and there is just no saving an oyster in my world. And Yeah. Same thing with caviar. Her and I shared our caviar experience because neither one of us had had it before. And we got a hold of what we were told was good stuff. We had to wait for it to show up from Whole Foods Market and pick it up when it got there. And all of this only to throw almost an entire can of caviar away.
Wow.
So it was
Well,
bad.
Speaking of wives, I'll just share. I asked Sherry this right before recording. She gave 3 answers. 1, the desert. No need to go back to the desert. She doesn't like creepy
Okay.
crawlies. It's overrated. No need to go back ever. She actually said the whole state of Arizona. And then I was like, you can't say that. There are really nice parts of Arizona. Her
It's
second
dry heat.
Yeah. Her second answer was scuba diving. We had a bad experience scuba diving when we eloped, and so she never needs to do that again. And this one, unpopular opinion, it's going to upset a lot of white middle-aged women. The Magnolia shop in Texas that is what's her head's
Oh yeah. Joanna
Gaines.
Gaines.
She's like, that whole store is all these shops that have the same exact items, just presented and arranged in slightly different ways.
Well, kind of like the show. Yeah. Yeah.
So she's like, it's not going to win me friends, but it's not worth it. Not worth it.
There you go.
All right, here's a few for you. Never gonna buy an HP printer again, or any printer for that matter. Yeah, support your local library for 10 cents a sheet, or print it off at the office the one day that you go in every quarter. Most of the time, people just need stuff around tax season. And I've been really swearing off printers for a long time. I do currently own one, got it for free. So otherwise, I don't think I've owned a printer since like that I purchased since 2007. That's how long I've made it
Oh wow, dude.
without owning a printer, and it's been glorious.
I can definitely see how one can certainly get away without having a printer. We use it out of convenience because we have it to like print things off for the kids. I know that we've printed off countless coloring pages and things like that and math sheets because the kids ask for it. We're like, we can probably print something like that out for you and that kind of thing. But
Yeah.
if we didn't have one, I think we'd be okay.
They used to give me a lot of headaches, but since I've gone laser, I've not had any issues, and I'm a fan.
There's your
Laser's the
tip.
way to
Do your
go.
own best. Direct message Corey for laser printer options. Here's another one: taking sleeping pills and a laxative at the same time. I don't think we need to double click on that one. That feels
I love that one.
Pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah. The I'll to quote it, but I'll shorten something a little bit. That GD cigarette button in the car, never touching it again. So hot.
I've touched one of those before as well.
Let's see.
I've got
like I've once like I don't know what I was thinking when I was little, like the cigarette lighter.
Yep.
It was red, and I was like, "This is crazy. There's no fire there. Like, how hot can it possibly be?" And I found out.
Pretty freaking hot. Well, Dillon, while you're looking, here's like a bunch from our friend Brennan. Number 1, do an MLM. That's multi-level marketing for the uninitiated. He said, learned a lot, but wouldn't repeat. Number 2, eat a
But
gas.
you get to own your own business. All the same risk as all the other entrepreneurs out there.
I still want to do that. I survived an MLM side episode. Number 2, eat a gas station hot dog. Number 3, gardening. Number 4, tent camping. That one was a little bummer to read, but I get it. I lost count. Let's say 5, crossbow a skunk.
Oh, I've not done that one so far. Until you got to that one, we hit 3 in a row of things that I enjoy.
I really need the story on number 5, Brennan. So if you could circle back, I'd appreciate it. Number 6, drink an IPA. Thank you so much. Love that.
These days, yeah.
And his last one, roll a semi-truck tire down a high school parking lot and watch it hit the cement block that holds up a light post and bounce 30 feet in the air before continuing to roll into the back of a nearby church, parentheses, on second thought, I would like to do that again, minus the church part. Sorry, Jesus. Just gotta pray I aim better.
Yeah, that's so weird. I have the same one.
What?
Just kidding. That's funny. I'm never playing pickleball again. Tore my Achilles 15 minutes into it. My surgeon said the injury was so common that they should get a new surgical wing just for pickleball Achilles tears. It's a nightmare.
What?
Apparently, that's the kind of thing.
I want to fact check that one.
This feels like when the Wii came out and there was talk of the Wii knee, and everybody had a wicked case of the Wii knee.
Yeah. How's pickleball that different from tennis injuries? It's the thing that they recommend 80-year-olds go out and do to stay active.
So
many
none of
questions.
you try to tempt me. It won't work. I'm just never going to play pickleball.
now in my head, I've got Dillon playing pickleball in a squirrel suit. So
Yeah.
There we go.
This feels really practical, like the don't never lend money. Just give it. If you can afford it, just give it. Never hire a family friend as a contractor for my house. Never again. I can only imagine how deep and dark that one goes. I don't. Yikes.
Okay, Midler Simon says, trek the entire south rim of the Grand Canyon in one day. Closest to near-death experience with zero climax. Fell into a cactus, cramped up like my entire body was going through menopause, and was so dehydrated that I couldn't even chew an orange. Never again.
Ouch.
I wonder how different Simon's answer would be if he didn't try to do the whole thing, but just like reasonable chunks. Anyway, now I'm overthinking. Okay, Midler Mike has 3, and then I'm tapped out from the from the middle for the Midler pace. Number 1, go to Jamaica. It was kind of depressing seeing how run down the countryside was versus how nice the resorts are.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard this about, there are some resorts in Haiti and places like this where the poverty stricken are just on the other side of the gate from the enclosed all-inclusive resort, and that it's just, I mean, if you're really good at turning and looking the other way, maybe it's fine. But for the people who care about human life, maybe it's more of a thing. Number 2, a Tough Mudder. Not that much fun at all. I don't think fun is in the brochure for those. It's called Tough Mudder. Okay. Number 3, run a marathon.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Well, that's the kind of thing where some people, I kind of feel this way. Like I did a 5K once. I feel like I've done one. I'm good. Don't ever need to. It's not a pull. There's no pull for me to like, I got to complete more. I can say that I've done a race. I did it. I had a good time. I feel fine.
I can also see it being like a bucket list item that once you accomplish, you're like, yeah, that wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Been there, done there.
Toward it too.
Got the sticker from my car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Here's a couple more. Really simple, 2 words or 1 word with a hyphen. I don't know. 1 ply. So I think we can leave that one alone. Cook bacon in the nude. Totally understand.
Yeah, understood.
Along with frying or any kind of Thanksgiving turkeys you might be throwing in a hot pot of oil. And
right.
The last
well, you should be doing those out in your front driveway. So if you're in the nude doing that one, the cops are coming.
Cops are coming for dinner too. And the last one, never gonna give you up. Which I think Rick rolled. That was it. That's all I got.
Oh, that's fun.
What a fun and high energy way to come out after a week off. Then with that little aside, that was really fun.
Yeah, that was so good.
Lists are the best thing that we do.
I think so. All right, I'm gonna check this off. So I have a little funny, what I thought was funny story. Bree and I were driving the other day, running some errands. We went through Starbucks, not our normal Starbucks, a different Starbucks. And on the top of the cup, at least my cup, they put a sticker on it, and not like a order sticker, but it was like a fun sticker, and it said "Love your energy," like just a silly kind of playful, bantery type sticker. And so we're pulling away, and so I'm thinking about this because I like to observe and sort of joke around. Most of it's not funny. Sometimes it is. And the love your energy thing felt kind of like a sweet. I'm like, that's a really good one to put, like, because they could have just put like I love you or I love coffee or something. But a love your energy is a fun way to like kickstart someone's day. And then that got me thinking, what kind of energy do I have? I'm sitting here with my wife. I can certainly ask her a really honest question like that. And so we're chatting about the sticker, and I said, I have a silly energy, right? Like I have a sweet and silly energy, to which she had a long pause and didn't immediately respond yes. And then her lack of response led me to believe that I don't have a sweet and silly type of energy. And then you sort of like self-analyze, and then it sort of sours, and you start thinking, oh, I just mostly have like a farty energy, don't I? It's just kind of a farty kind. And then that got me thinking, which she did agree to that right away. So that I nailed it the second time. And so that kind of got me thinking about this whole idea of um the how you describe, I gotta find it because I wrote it down. How you describe people without using any positives. So if you were gonna say like, yeah, he's sort of got like I mean he's like a not the worst kind of person, you know? Like, yeah, he's got sort of you could probably leave your kids with him, you know? He's gonna look after him probably, you know? And I think that's a whole kind of like theme of stickers that you could do. Maybe not Starbucks, because that's not on theme with them. But now I have to ask. So if you had to describe your energy in a not so positive kind of way, what would your energy be? If mine is a farty energy, which she agreed to. Do you have any answers for that one? Do you?
Oh boy.
I feel like
No?
I need to take that one back to my therapist.
Or, well, I
Kind
was
of
going to say, or your
energy am I
wives,
giving
but you
off?
might not like the answers.
I mean, I think after she hears this episode, she's going to not be able to think of anything other than farty energy,
Yeah.
and that's going to be
Maybe
That's gonna
that's
be
just
her.
most husbands. Maybe
That
that's
could
just
be.
I
That
was
could
thinking
be.
like sweet and silly. Like, oh, I have a sweet energy, right? Not like the robotic not like the robotic. See, I was thinking like in a professional setting is where my brain went to. I'm like, oh, I think I try to be really helpful and like, oh, a really sweet coworker that checks on people, and
Yeah.
so that's probably not where she jumped to, which is fine. But props to you, Starbucks, for a really nice sticker and getting a good conversation going. I wish I had the note, because I could find the note, because I had a bunch of other ideas on different types of energy people could have. Um, but I do think that would be a funny line of stickers. Maybe I'll work on that. Maybe we'll work on something.
Yeah. Do you have I was told today that I have a joke style that not necessarily that I'm good at telling, but jokes that I tend to enjoy telling more than others.
Mhm.
And which isn't wrong, but I disagreed that this joke was one. Um but like I had one of our kids having a rough night, and so like I told her a couple of nice little kid jokes, because I've always thought that like that's better. Making jokes in those situations is better than like talking about the problem. And it worked. She went back to bed, and we'll do it again tomorrow, and we'll keep doing that until she's 18 and screwed up. And that's our long-term plan. But then that got me in the mood to like tell an adult joke to my wife after everyone was in bed, and I did, and it was a groaner. And she said that I enjoy the long-winded joke with a really dumb punchline, whose purpose it is to make the person regret that I told them a joke, and that I found fun in
Yeah.
making them sit through the joke. And I do love those kinds of jokes. I have a few of those kinds of jokes.
You've told a couple on this podcast.
I sure have. I get a giant kick out of those.
Yeah. So for you, you might say his jokes could be shorter, they're not the worst.
It's funny because it's wrong.
Yeah.
Or because it's long. Like that's part.
Yeah.
That's the point. Which tells me that I'm telling jokes for me,
Yeah.
not necessarily for you.
I think he has like a sadist energy. Like he likes watching people squirm and be uncomfortable with no payoff whatsoever. Yeah, like that.
Yeah.
But I appreciated it when someone told the joke to me, right?
Yeah.
And so
he's still defining humor in his life.
that's right. It's a Norm Macdonald. My favorite joke of all time is the moth joke, and Norm Macdonald is where I heard it.
Yeah. That's fun. So I wonder why they're doing those stickers. That's the new move on Starbucks's part. Probably like driving community engagement and making people feel special.
Yeah, I mean, it got me talking, right? So
Yeah.
like,
I like the idea that the barista had like a sheet of 12 and like that was the last one.
Yeah.
And it's led to a podcast to talk about why you received it.
Yeah.
I also like the thought of like these like happy-go-lucky positive stickers that are getting put on each cup, but the barista is just pissed off that they have another step.
Yeah.
And so it's just with disdain that they're putting these happy stickers on these cups. I think in my mind that's fun.
Or maybe based on the interaction at the drive-through, speaker decides whether you get, one of the happy stickers or one of like the angry, whatever. It's like a skull and crossbones, the next guy, because he's rude about how he ordered his latte.
Maybe. I wouldn't assume that much thoughtfulness from anybody on the other side of a drive-through speaker. Not that there's anything wrong with them. If I was on the other side of that drive-through speaker, I'd get the same amount of thoughtfulness.
Yeah. Sometimes you're just bored and looking for any source of that's awesome. So what are you guys up to? I know it's been a couple weeks. Corey, you just traveled. I was just traveling. Kendall is probably doing things with his kids and building memories that we're not.
And teaching them how to navigate life and making them better people and more well-rounded individuals.
By using humor to skirt around emotions. Yeah.
Yeah, I got nothing.
Oh, very good.
Great.
So we've got a baseball season coming up for the first time, which I'm excited about. And
love me some baseball.
Isaac, the oldest boy, wants to give baseball a shot. And I played baseball as a kid, my entire childhood, essentially, and loved it. Good memories there. And so we'll see. We'll see if baseball sticks with him. We got some catcher's gear for free, and so like he wants to try to be a catcher, and so like we've had a little bit of fun, both in the backyard and very carefully in the living room, going over some catcher stuff, and he likes putting on the gear and whatnot. So he had an evaluation thing this past weekend, and then practices start next weekend. I don't remember. After Easter, I think. I don't remember exactly when practices start. But man, I'm looking forward to it. I've always said that's the one sport that I could see myself coaching and like teaching strategy and whatnot, which means that I don't want to teach kids my son's age. I want to teach like maybe middle school baseball, something like that, coach that level where you can start getting into strategy and they have the basic fundamentals. You just need to like tune them at the beginning of each year and that kind of thing. Yeah. So if he sticks with baseball, man, I could see myself getting hyper dad involved.
That was the only sport that I was slightly above average at, that I was like, if I ever have kids that do baseball or softball, I'll actually have something to offer. And Lily got into it last year. They didn't have enough girls to do a team this year at her very small Christian school, so she was very bummed. And my son has no interest. So there we go. But speaking of kids in sports, I'm proud to announce that my 8th grader, Chloe, made captain out of 120 some kids. She's one of 4 girl captains, and they chose 4 boy captains, and we're super proud of her. So that's awesome. Go,
Congrats. And speaking of baseball, UFL starting very soon.
Oh
Very,
yes.
very exciting. And speaking of baseball and UFL and sports in general, have you guys been to the Children's Museum in Indianapolis? Have you ever done that before?
No.
All right, so we were just visiting some family. We went to the Children's Museum. I've heard good things, but in my head, I'm thinking COSI. So, like, not positive or negative towards COSI, just I'm thinking, okay, it's going to be like COSI. Way different. Way different. Yes, there is a museum building. Yes, there are some exhibits. There's a lot more interactive stuff to do at the Children's Museum. One thing that I thought was kind of neat was they had like exploring Greece, as in the country, and it wasn't like ancient Greece. It was like this is what Greece was like. Like you go into the exhibit on a little plane with like screens in the seats, and they're using videos to tell you about Greece. And then you go in and there's like a shop where they're making bread, and then you see like a shop where they have oil and like a fish market. And it was like a really cool. I would imagine some donors probably have that heritage and donated to create an exhibit like this. But you don't often see an exhibit that is about life in another country today or in recent history. Not that history is bad. I love history. But it's also really cool to just be like, here's what life is like in another part of the world that's different than ours. So
Cool.
that was really cool. But as we're going through a lot of exhibits around like pop culture, there was a Ninja Turtles exhibit that had like some cool statues. I'll send some photos over. But then the outside, this is where it gets really cool. So very clearly, a lot of thought went into the sports section of the Children's Museum outside. They've got tennis courts. They've got like a tennis practice court. They have like a football field from the 20-yard line into the end zone with a full like like kick to do field goals. They've got a mini Indy racetrack with a little mini like press center box, like a shrunk version. They've got a mini soccer field. They've got a mini hockey court. They've got a mini, all of these sports, and in a mini little softball field, but with like an actual baseball mini stadium and a scoreboard. And they're pumping in like ESPN type music and crowd noise into this outdoor center. They have basketball courts that have a tiny little one that like babies could shoot on, and then one that's taller and taller and taller. You can go hit a button on the basketball thing that does like the shot clock, and those are pumping out crowd noise. And in any way that they could affiliate it with an Indiana sports team, like they have. So the football field is all Colts. They've got like the soccer field, it's all the Indy 11. They've got the Pacers on the basketball courts. They've got so this whole area is like everything that you would want to do as a kid in your yard. You're like, shot clock, it's down to 3, 2, and the crowd noise playing.
Love that.
And it's for all ages. And you can go onto their little arena soccer field, and they have goals, and you can just go kick around. And their little baseball diamond is shrunk down, but like it looks like a tiny little, like if they took the Clipper Stadium and cut it down to a third size, but like you can go in there and play. So there's kids everywhere just having a crazy awesome time. And I thought Columbus is freaking missing the boat by not having something that is like combined Crew, Buckeyes, Clippers. If they wanted to leverage one of the NFL teams, they could, from Cleveland or Cincinnati. Or it was just like you've got to look, even if you don't ever go there, just look at videos of this outdoor thing. Because like my daughter was looking at stuff she's never tried, going, I want to try tennis. Like I want to go get on the soccer field and try that. And so, and you can just run on and do it. And the tiny little indie track was tied to like go-kart racing, and there was putt-putt. And so the outdoor part of this was just off the charts. Like if you were a kid, you would never, ever, ever want to leave. So if you go to Indianapolis, you're ever there for a sporting event or you're passing through, take some time to go to the Children's Museum, especially if the weather's nice. It was really, really cool. And I love how they tied it into all the local sports teams, because then, like for the football field section, On the left, they have some stuff set up to run drills, like where you quickly step through the thing and you jump over pads and you move through cones. There's also like a padded area on the left side of the end zone behind it where you can try to throw through the circles in the wall.
Mm-hmm.
At the middle, you can kick field goals, and then on the right is a tiny little field goal that you can kick through. So there's kids like catching passes running into the blue Colts end zone. There's other kids throwing the football on the other side of the end zone, through the little wall with holes. It's just I can't describe how cool it is. Like as an adult, I'm like, can I come after hours and do the football field stuff? Because I want to go
dude.
I want to run around and like kick field goals on this, and throw passes.
I bet you they have like an Adult Swim time.
I mean, the little soccer field would be so fun to play around on, and then on top of that, they've constructed this somewhere in the middle is this giant tree. I don't know how tall it is. I'm a bad gauge of that. 100 feet, 150 feet, and kids can go play up in it like a giant playland. And anywhere that there's openings to look out, it's netted so the kids can kind of like hold on. If you're on YouTube, you can see Corey sharing it now. So just you see like the tiny little hockey court and all the tennis courts, and the racetrack is at the very back, and so you can see behind the tree to the left is like the tiny little that's the Indy 500 command
I
center,
love that. Yeah.
but like a shrunk version, and you can see the baseball field. Although that's not even complete because that doesn't have the scoreboard. And the little basketball areas. And so even my daughter, who's 6, could go like run up to the small hoops and dunk it. And
yeah,
the crowd cheering noise is playing and the ESPN music is playing. And so Columbus needs to get on something like that because it was so freaking fun. We had a really good time up. Their whole museum is cool too. There's stuff in the museum that's fun, a lot of great exhibits, but certainly something that's worth seeing if you're in that area.
So the official name of everything Dillon just described is the Riley's Children's Health Sports Legends Experience. That is a part of the museum there. So that's awesome. Shout out to them. We'll tag them in the episode. They won't.
Yeah. And it's not the tickets are expensive, but it's not a separate charge to go do the sports thing. You can go see the museum. You can go do the sports thing. It's all in one ticket. So tons of fun.
Well, thanks, Squirrel Suit Hubble. We are excited to hear some words from some of our friends in Odd Pods Media, and we'll be right back with what I'm sure will be a fair amount of streaming. Talk soon.
Hey, I'm Pantsless Aaron.
This is Stevie.
And I'm Augie.
And we are BFYTW, a podcast all about playing games and having fun. Our games are usually based on British panel shows and game shows, but we'll play anything that captures our attention and imagination. Why? It's right there in the title.
You'll never guess what the F stands for.
Hey, why are Timothée Chalamet, Anna Taylor-Joy, and Zendaya in everything?
It's Timothée Chalamet, and his middle initial is H, so it's THC. Anya Taylor-Joy, and I never remember how to say Zendaya.
Zendaya. Seriously, I feel like they're in everything. I don't mind because Chalamet's a stud. He's nice to look at, but it just feels like, listen, we all go through that. You had the 80s that had the Brat Pack. You had, you go through phases where it just feels like, especially everything I watch, even if it's a bit part, they're popping up in there somewhere. It's fascinating.
Yeah, it's totally true. And actually, it's so funny. I just saw news today. Because of the success of Dune and Wonka, Warner Brothers has tapped Timothée on the shoulder to like he can produce and star in a couple movies. Like they're gonna let him pick some projects to work on. So like
nice.
Congrats to him. In fact, Warner Brothers has signed a bunch of people to those kind of contracts recently. So like Warner Brothers could be super hot the next 5 to 10 years with all these like really good, hot, not just like the nepo celebrity, like, oh, they're not really a good actress, but they're related to so and so. Like they're tagging like some of the most talented artists to do these contracts to be making movies and shows and things. So Warner Brothers could be super hot in the next 5 or 10.
Or could go the other way. I feel like
a
lot of media these days is something happened alongside the advent of streaming platforms where there's so much of throw things at the wall and see if they stick kind of way about going about show business these days. I could be wrong. Maybe it's just my perception because I'm like I have access to so much of it now where I didn't before, but because I didn't have cable or whatever. But like, I mean, certainly like the streaming films and everything like that. I don't know. I feel like we're getting more content, but not better content.
Sherry, who usually shares with me sports information and then I relay it as though I heard it because I'm cool and sportsy, shared a media and entertainment factoid with me, and that's that Timothy Chalamet's newest movies have helped him reach record-breaking status. So in the late 70s, John Travolta had two top-grossing films come out within 8 months of each other. Saturday Night Fever came out in December of 77, and Grease came out in June of 78. And so now 28-year-old Chalamet, who was recently in Wonka and Dune, became the first actor since then to lead the top two domestic grossing films over a span of 8 months. So
Very good.
fascinating. He's in rare air, the Chalamet.
Yeah. And Dune is a beautiful movie.
So good. Can we talk about it? We've all watched it.
I haven't seen it yet. I'm so
What?
sorry.
It's okay.
I feel like I need to go. You can talk about it. I don't think it's going to ruin it, right?
No, we'll do a spoiler free. So all I heard going in was that it's being hailed as the best sci-fi sequel since Empire Strikes Back, which is high praise.
High praise.
High praise. And it felt special watching it. I don't know that I've sat in a theater with my mouth agape for so long, and was just totally along for the ride. I didn't read the book. I did watch the 1984 version. We talked about this a bunch of episodes ago. And so I knew that Frank Herbert put a lot into his world building and that there's a lot to understand when approaching this story. So the 84 version, which was weird and has its own little cult following,
not a beautiful movie.
Not a beautiful movie. Very weird, very wacky. But it did include all of, or many of the components that were in the books. I didn't realize, and I remember sharing when I saw the first Dune, that they were going to split the first book into two films, and so I'm nearing a 2-hour mark, going, they've got a lot to wrap up.
Yeah,
and then like, oh crap, they're going to make this two movies. But man, I was along for the ride. Enjoyed every minute of it. It got some criticism that there are some slow parts, but I felt those were absolutely necessary to the storytelling. And we talk ad nauseum about how one of our collective favorite things about some of our favorite shows is the ability to show a character arc, similar to Walter White in Breaking Bad, or any of these characters who start off with a certain motive and then over time perhaps make moral compromises. And so this has elements of that. And you see that change happen slowly over the two films. Man, I just thought it was so good, visually stunning, some cinematic technology used in the shooting of one sequence in particular that I've never seen before in movies. Very fun, not for everybody probably, but man, I was there for all of it.
There's a friend of ours who had once pointed out that like sometimes watching these westerns that come out, like western-esque kind of things like Longmire and Yellowstone, are just relaxing to watch if you're not like paying too much attention to the drama, just because they're beautiful to watch. Like the scenery and these shooting areas is just amazing, and the filmmakers like show it off. And like Dune, like they created a world that like is worth showing off, and it's like it's a beautiful movie to look at. It's an impressive movie. to see, knowing how much CGI is in it, and you wouldn't guess, like,
It feels
other
very
than the fact that
practical.
we know
Yeah.
how movies are made.
Yeah.
But yeah, it feels so real. It looks so nice. Like, and then the writing, and they got it's a really good story arc for a main character to begin with. Like, the book is amazing. Um, and so I felt like that part it was easy. Well, let me back up, because it'd probably be easy to act that character incorrectly, or to direct that character incorrectly and make it happen too fast.
Mm-hmm.
If anything, they made it happen a little too subtly, because I have a feeling that a lot of people didn't understand at the end that he is turned heel, so to speak, by the end of the film. But nonetheless, fascinating to watch for a bunch of reasons apart from the story, and the story itself is a really good one.
Yeah. So just real quick on that note, before I forget, can we talk about the trailer for Horizon: An American Saga by Kevin Costner and starring Kevin Costner? Did you see that in the theater when you watched Dune?
I don't remember if I saw it in the theater or if I saw it elsewhere, but I did see it.
So I finished Yellowstone.
Okay.
And as soon as I finished, had to go deep dive all the articles as to why he's not coming back. And a part of the contract negotiations was less about dollars, my understanding, and more about he wanted time off. He wanted to take shooting from however many weeks, months it was per season, and like reduce that to like, we can do all the shooting in 2 weeks because I want to go work on this project that I've been wanting to do my whole career, this big, swooping, long tail Western saga, which is coming out. And so they show the trailer for Horizon: An American Saga, where Kevin Costner has a big old mustache and he's exploring the Wild West and pioneering the Wild West. And then I go to Google's and learn that he's planning on doing 4 of these things. So this Horizon: An American Saga could be up to 4 movies. And it looked so beautiful. And the landscapes felt very like Yellowstone-esque. And that looks like it's going to be a good time in theaters. So I know you're a John Dutton fan and a Kevin Costner fan and a Wild West fan, and this is like all of those things.
Yep. He had me at Field of Dreams, man.
Yeah. Anyway, go watch Dune Part 2 before it leaves theaters. That means you have to, I think you do need to watch the first one.
You absolutely need to watch the first one.
I wouldn't recommend just going into 2, but man, it was good. Anyway.
So hopefully, I mean, we might see more. We might see more of Dune in the future.
Yeah.
We'll see. We finished the novel, the first one. There's more of that world to explore in literature. But there's a giant time gap that they'll have to jump in order to do it, which means that they might have to write some story themselves. And that's where I get scared.
Yeah, that's when the fanboys and girls freak out as well.
Yeah.
Dillon, over to you, buddy. What are you watching these days?
Well, it's a little late to go in depth now, but I did watch the Oscars, ironically streaming on Netflix, which we talked about. It was
Indeed
great to just be able to hop on there and check out the whole thing without commercials, without all the crap. It was shortened. It was great. As always, as we talk about every year, we're not Oscars fans because we like to put celebrities on pedestals. We just like to know what things we might want to watch. And because of the Oscars, I added several things to my queue that I definitely never, ever would have watched otherwise. One of those was I immediately streamed The Last Repair Shop on Disney Plus, which won Best Short Documentary. Really good. Check it out if you're into short documentaries. This one specifically. LA City Schools, it's one of the last school systems in the country that will give kids instruments to play and it follows the basically four main employees of that repair shop that help repair all the instruments and kind of their stories and what got them to that place. Of course, because of the nature of the documentary being kind of music, it's got a beautiful score. So as you're watching, you notice several times this is like film score level music playing in the background at times, which I love. So that was really good. Speaking of Timothée Chalamet, Wonka on HBO Max was really good. It was super fun. I talked about my old friend, which is not true. He's not an old friend, but acquaintance that I met once, Patterson Joseph, the actor, played one of the three bad chocolatiers. He was the main one, and I'm forgetting the name now. But I had met Patterson in Columbus a long time ago, got to chat with him for a little bit. I didn't even know he was in the movie. Somebody showed up. It was great. I'm like, I met that guy once. So that was a ton of fun. What if just a perfectly fun movie? If you haven't watched Wonka yet, I feel kind of like Solo. And then Corey wants to double click. I feel like with Solo, I'm the Star Wars story. It was a movie no one was asking for, but it actually turned out really good. And that's kind of how I felt about Wonka. I don't know anyone who asked for a Wonka prequel, but I liked it. It was a really good movie, and I'd totally watch it again. Corey.
So as a Wonka fan, the first one has a special place in my heart.
Oh yeah.
And then I'm such a Tim Burton geek, and I was obsessed with Johnny Depp for a time that I had to watch the 2000 and whatever that was version. I liked parts of it. Other parts of it were like Tim Burton. So where does this compare? I know it's a prequel story of how Wonka came to be a little bit, but just if you were to put them on the same plane, and
is
not
it like dark, creepy, or
yeah,
is it
overly colorful and silly, or does it feel in the same spirit of those others, or is it its own thing? I just at a high level.
Let an 8-year-old watch it. What's going on?
Oh, totally. This is definitely a kids movie.
Oh,
I wouldn't call it dark or creepy. It's definitely not Tim Burton. And you also get a sense that like Gene Wilder's Wonka, you watch him and you're like, he's seen some, like some good guy into a weird place in life that like the town is dark and creepy that he lives in, and like this, it almost feels like Germany during World War II, and like he's somehow allowed to keep making chocolate under the Nazi regime or whatever. This is like or like this is Paris under German rule. This is like Paris without German rule. So like it's not that dark and heavy. Kids can totally watch it. Timothée Chalamet does a really good job. It's fun, but he's got some sort of history that is sort of sad, and you feel that he does a really good job. But totally kids can watch it. Like I have a 6-year-old, I'd let her watch it. And Keegan-Michael Key is in it. He has a really fun role. Patterson Joseph, who's the main bad guy in Wonka? The other chocolatier. I can't think of his name. They reference him like the. They always just say it's
Slugworth.
Yeah. So this is like he's competing. He's trying to open a new shop against the three like built-in chocolatiers in town, and Patterson Joseph plays Slugworth. But yeah, really fun, really lighthearted. Easily, my 6-year-old could watch it, and most kids would, I think, love it. So yeah, it's fun.
Cool.
Goodness, what else? Speaking of things kids can't watch, Napoleon on Apple TV Plus. I had some family watch it and say, it just seemed really dark and sad. And I'm like, yeah, that's Napoleon in history. So if you're going knowing it's not going to end well for him, but you enjoy history. It was really good. I'm not normally a big Joaquin Phoenix guy. I think he's a good actor, but he's a little out there for me. But it was really, really good. Masters of the Air finished on Apple TV Plus. Super good. Not as good as Band of Brothers, but better than the Pacific. I will say though, disclaimer: my dad, who loves Band of Brothers, did not like Masters of the Air, so that's a hard recommendation. Because we both love Band of Brothers deeply, and I could sit, and if someone was interested, I would sit and explain to you why we had differing opinions. Not worth deep diving here. But if you're interested in knowing why, DM us and we'll talk through that. And I think that's it. I think that's everything that I've been streaming, and hopefully Dune soon with some other Oscar.
Do it.
I know I want to. I want to see it in theaters, and I want to see. I have some of these other Oscar winners queued up. So,
Well,
Uh,
Kendall and I thought Dune Part 2 was the bomb. Speaking of weapons of mass destruction, we also both watched Oppenheimer. Kendall, your thoughts?
and, well, hey, another film that had some beautiful moments. I thought it was like a very well made biopic of like it's the directors who were able to put together a science biopic and like about a relatively obviously a very important time in history, but it's a nerdy biopic that they made interesting. And I don't know that I can come up with another great example of that. Um, but I mean, it had some action in it, but it had like drama that you actually cared about, like a part, like side stories apart from the bomb. Um, that made you invest in characters and side characters of this moment in history in a way that most of us probably never would have. And like interestingly, I went back and the film caused me to like look up some and read up on some of the history surrounding um the Manhattan Project and everything else, and enough to say that like the film is certainly one-sided, but again, that's not, they're not trying to make political points necessarily. um but Oppenheimer, there was certainly reason to think that he could have been a shady character, but um that said, like I don't like the movie had me caring about the guy, and uh I enjoyed myself watching it. Like it was, I was impressed by the acting, by the dialogue, by the writing, and just by the sheer fact that it got me that interested um, in such a topic in those kinds of ways.
yeah. So speaking of making nerdy science things interesting, Lessons in Chemistry that I mentioned on Apple TV Plus with Brie Larson sounds similar. But I had to ask about this. This was Robert Downey Jr.'s first ever Oscar for Best Supporting Actor.
Mm-hmm.
Which, and I've seen several people say since that's come out, obviously I haven't seen Oppenheimer yet, that like, not that he carries the movie, but that he's probably doing some of the best, if not the best, acting in the movie. Do you
Yeah,
feel like it was true, or do you feel like they were, not that he didn't do a great job, but they were like, hey, let's almost make this a lifetime achievement award?
I feel like he's. I mean, just with Iron Man alone, I think he's done better acting. But um, I mean, there's nothing wrong with the acting. I just I don't know. Maybe I'm a bad person to ask, but I feel like it was, hey, we haven't seen you do this role in a little while, and so it's there's a maybe some novelty points that popped up there for him.
Yeah.
But maybe it could be the lifetime achievement thing. And maybe I'm a bad person to ask about what is or isn't good acting, other than to say I enjoyed him in Iron Man more. But that could be because he was more of a lead in that one and very much a supporting actor by any definition in Oppenheimer. So
I think
Yeah.
you get extra points too when some of your scenes in a highly touted movie are in black and white.
sure.
And they're just like, ooh, this is Archie and special. And
Yeah. Yeah.
that happened. I watched it on the plane to Seattle. It's 3 hours long. It took over half the flight, and I was very entertained. Thought it was well done, and good point, Kendall, on making a science-y topic interesting. I think we're all probably guilty of knowing just enough about history to be dangerous and assuming the person's morals involved in such a significant moment in history. And so I was very curious as to what was the personal belief system of the guy who ran the Manhattan Project and created two atomic bombs to drop on a country and do mass damage and destruction. And I think they went right there, and that was the point of the film. But you could imagine this mad scientist who's cackling while he's doing it, or you can imagine somebody who's held at gunpoint and told that you're going to do this. And this guy was somewhere in between those two things. And
Yeah.
he made choices and he was free to do a lot of it. And then those other parts he really struggled with. You wonder how much of that was true to the actual human being that lived. But it's a fascinating exploration into something like that, where you're appreciated for your mind and what it can do. And then there's the ramifications of what your creation can do. I thought that was a really interesting point.
Yeah, and I think that the film does, at the very least, a very good job at reminding people, like maybe our age and younger, who don't necessarily realize that there is a context in which all of this stuff happened. And part of that context is there is a worldwide race to create an atomic bomb. Like that was the concept that the context that our military found themselves in, trying to beat the Russians.
Yep.
And making this thing, because whoever gets it first wins, essentially. Like,
and what I loved, sorry to cut you out, like, I don't know that I trust us with this technology, but I know that I don't trust Germany with this technology. Like that was fascinating. Or Russia with this technology.
Exactly.
I was like,
because it was Germany, I think, right, who came out with like the little piece of science, like they split an atom. And then from there, like physicists all over the world took that and like, let's weaponize this. And yeah.
Interesting stuff. Well, real quick, I watched a fascinating documentary on Netflix that's definitely not for the kiddies. The Program, Cons, Cults, and Kidnapping. So this touches on the troubled teen trend that got really popular decade or so ago. You've seen it on Maury Povich or Jerry Springer or these shows where it's really quote unquote bad kids who come on and they get handcuffed and taken to a set them straight sort of facility. And it was praised as this really good way to get kids on the straight and narrow and keep them off the drugs and from making these really bad decisions. But then you learn that there's a much bigger thing going on behind the scenes of a lot of these camps and these programs that all stems from the self-help movement, hippie sort of like stuff that went on in the 60s. Anyway, I don't want to get too into it, but the best part about it is to sell you on why you should watch it. One of the girls that got out of one of these programs while she was in a horrible situation for 15 months read the book The Count of Monte Cristo. And in that, somebody is wrongfully imprisoned. And while they're in prison, they spend all their time figuring out how to get revenge on the people that put them there. And so she, before she got sent to this troubled teen camp, loved having a camera with her everywhere she went and making little movies and documentaries. So while she was in there, she's like, I'm going to expose at the highest levels, I'm going to follow the money of this whole thing and expose this system all across the globe of these troubled camps that are essentially just ways to make a ton of money for a certain small group of people. And the kids end up just being tokens in this system of currency because they're actually brainwashing the parents into thinking that their kids need to go to these things so that they can get money. And then they do the math to figure out how much is actually required to run these camps and then how much the camps are getting. And then anyway, so she gets out and she initially sets out to just expose the one camp that she was a part of, really just to show her dad, look what you sent me to. And you thought you were doing a good thing, but look what was actually happening. But then she uncovered a whole web of all these things. And this 3-series docuseries is her Count of Monte Cristo revenge on that goes up to like government politicians and stuff. It's fascinating and a little dark and sad to watch at parts. But oh, holy crap. The stuff that went on in these camps, you can imagine.
So in other words, she came out of camp and turned her life around and did something productive with her life.
So it worked.
What's the problem, Corey?
Leave it to Kendall. The best response. Oh, it was so good. Check it out.
That was funny. That was funny and it wasn't even long.
See? Oh, that's so good.
You had mentioned watching Napoleon, and that reminded me of another one that just makes me want to give a quick shout out to Jim Taylor, the person who taught me that one. Anyway.
And then I'm still watching Black Mirror. If you like a good premise and you aren't watching Black Mirror, I don't know what you're doing with your life. There was one episode, I won't get too into it because I know we're about at time. But they show the mom in the birthing room. She's having a cesarean section with the curtain so she can't see what's going on. They pull out the baby. The baby's not crying right away, so she gets very nervous. And they really draw out the amount of time that lapsed between when she delivered and when the baby first cries to establish that the mother has a lot of fear over her child. And then they cut to when the child is 4 and the child is at a playground and follows a stray cat and ends up going missing. And so the mom again has to have the whole neighborhood go out and try to find the child. So this just reinforces this fear that she has over her child. So the concept of Black Mirror is these little episodes are little vignettes about the what ifs of technology and science and how we might use it in the future. So the next scene, she's maybe 8, 9, 10, the little girl, and the mom's taking her to a place called Archangel, where they can essentially put a little chip in the child's mind, and the mom gets a tablet that corresponds to the chip. And she can push a few icons. One of the icons simply shows the child's location. One of the icons actually shows the point of view of the child. So it looks through the eyes of the child to see what the child is seeing. You can see the vitals, you can do all these things. So the mom over time gets more and more attached to having to look at the tablet whenever something is going wrong. Then this is super interesting. To protect her child from potentially scary or grotesque scenes, there's a way that she can toggle on a feature that blurs out whatever the child sees. So there's a scary dog in their neighborhood every time that they walk to school. And so the mom can say anytime that a certain chemical is released in her mind being caused by something she's seeing, the child actually sees like a grainy image and it actually mutes the dog and the dog becomes just a brown and black blur. And so she can't see it. But then later in life, child psychologists are like, fear and stuff actually teaches us. And your daughter is now not getting, she's not learning from these experiences because you're blocking them from having them. And then they ban the technology. So now they're like, hey, you could just throw the tablet away, but we can't remove the chip. So the chip's still there, but you should just turn off the tablet. Then it cuts to she's a teenager and goes missing one time. And that tablet is still up in a box collecting dust, and she can go see what her teenager's doing. And then that leads to a whole series of crazy events. But just, I love these premises that Black Mirror presents. And it's just one of many, many, many different things. You guys should definitely watch. That episode was called Archangel. But it raises so many interesting questions like, what would you do? And then you're setting out to do a good thing, but it actually becomes a damaging thing. And if the technology existed, would you do this too? We talked about the clone episode. If you could create a clone of yourself, would you do that? It's fascinating. Anyway, check out Black Mirror.
Where's all this stuff streaming? Where's the program?
All Netflix.
All Netflix. Okay. Easy.
I watched today. Mike Birbiglia has a show called Good One, a show about jokes on Peacock that I saw, which was a fun little watch. It's less than an hour long.
I love that guy.
I love that guy too. And what was so cool about it, it's not a comedy special. on the contrary, it's something that he sort of produced and put together following a comedy special. And it starts out with him talking about something that we touched on recently, which is that like comedians have their entire lives to come up with their first special. But then once they actually do a special, they kind of feel like they burned all of those jokes. And now like they need new material. So they spent their whole life putting stuff together. And then they just, if you do a special, it's like throwing your life's work out the window. And so it talks about like how rare it is. Some of these comedians where you see them turn out a special every couple of years or so, like they are incredible for doing that. All of the other comedians are not on that pace whatsoever. So Mike kind of who's been known to have a lot of specials, kind of walks through that feeling and sort of his neurotic method of putting together new jokes and streaming things and theming things and talking things through with people from his family and other producers and things like that, and just really trying to put together a good show so that he can do a new special someday with this stuff. And so it's really interesting to watch him go about like his crazy note card method of writing jokes and where he goes to kind of try these things out. Kind of gives you some other ideas of where people sort of like in the other parts of the country. We talk a lot about the what's the place over in LA?
Oh, the Comedy Store.
We have talked about a lot about the Comedy Store and what that means to comedians trying stuff out. But then like there's other guys like Mike Birbiglia who was doing the same thing on the opposite side of the country. And so it's a much smaller town, much smaller venue where he tends to work his stuff out. It's just fascinating to watch. So if you're interested maybe in some of the things that we've talked about comedians and that career, go check out on Peacock Mike Birbiglia. Good one.
I'm definitely going to check that out.
And
Thanks.
watch some of his stand up if you never have, because he's doing what other comics are doing in the most basic sense. But his storytelling and how he structures his entire specials is probably unlike any other comedian. It's almost like his whole special is him telling. It's the opposite of Kendall. It's a long joke that's funny at the end, but and
it's funny in between as well.
And it's
like
funny in between, but it's like
it's almost like a one-man show / stand-up set.
Yeah, and so it's a long continuous story or set of linked stories. It's not like I'm gonna chat about going to therapy for 2 minutes and then totally change gears to like, looking for a dog. Like he weaves all of his stuff together so well and circles back to jokes that he's already made, and he's doing something for somebody who struggled so much to do stand-up comedy early on. What he's doing now is really smart, high quality storytelling as a comedian. And so if you've never watched any Mike Birbiglia, go watch some of his stuff and see if you think it's funny. I think the dude is hilarious.
All right. Well, that ought to last you for another week. We gave you a bunch of things you can go watch. Thanks for tuning in. Again, sorry we missed a week, but it's good to be back hanging out with you. We hope you feel like you're a part of the show. And if you want to weigh in on future questions like our Middlers did with how we opened the show with our anti-bucket list, we would love to hear from you. We always post all the ways that you can get a hold of us in the episode description below. The best way to do that is our LinkTree. One link to rule them all. It shows you all the different ways and methods you can get a hold of us. We got a phone number if you want to text or leave a voicemail. We always love hearing your voice. That's always great. So if you've got ideas for topics, questions, comments, if you want to weigh in, if you want to continue to add some of your anti-bucket list items, we totally accept those. And we would love to hear from you. It's our favorite part of the show. There's also a tip jar. If you want to throw a few bucks in there for the free entertainment, we would greatly appreciate it. It's going to help us buy hot sauce so we can finally do that episodes of Hot Ones. And we love hanging out with you. Hope you had a great week. Hope you have a great week. And we'll see you next time on From the Middle.